Hello, good morning, everyone. It's 11:01. Welcome here. So nice to see you here. um, yeah, welcome to this beautiful Sunday morning in Calgary for our talk today. So before I start, I'd like to invite everyone to join and stay with us after this talk, where we're going to have our annual general meeting. So everybody is more than welcome to stay and be with us to help plan and see what does FSS could look like in the future, and see uh, some of the news and some of the things that we have in the plans in the books for FSS. All right. So I hope everybody's listening or hearing me okay. I'm going to start with our text. That today is text number 89 from Living Springs, and the title is On Our Journey. Jesus asked him, "What would you like me to do for you?" MK, not sure what MK would be. 1051. Each student has a lesson to learn. Each worker has been entrusted with a task. Each vase has its usefulness. Each struggler has an ordeal to endure. Thus, each of us has our own individual testimony on the road of life. We often fail at our commitments and thus greatly increase our debts. Yet, in our redemptive endeavor, we beg the Lord for his mercy, compassion, and help. The question the Master asks of the blind man from Jericho is highly meaningful. However, what would you like me to do for you? This question shows us that the beggar's delicate position was in line with the imperatives of the law. Nothing happens in absentia of the divine principles. Blind Bartimaeus knew how to respond and asked to be able to see. Nevertheless, how many people pray for access to the Savior's presence, but when asked by him, the answer they answer it their own they answer it to their own detriment. Let us remember that sometimes we might have to lose our earthly home in order to learn the way to our heavenly home. On many occasions, we are abandoned by those we love the most so that we may return to the divine bonds. And then there are the times when the wounds of the body are called on to heal those of the spirit. And there are situations in each paralysis teaches us how precious being able to move is. It is natural for us to ask for the Master's help in our afflictions and difficulties. Meanwhile, let us not forget to work for the good on the most painful passages of rectification and ascension, convinced that we invariably find ourselves in the most just, beneficial, and deserved opportunity of work, and that maybe for the time being, we do not know how to choose anything better. All right, let us pray. So let's, with this text about our journey, about the importance to know and to be aware of what to ask our Father and Jesus, our Master. Let's stay connected to Lord, to Jesus, to our guardian angels, to the spiritual team from FSS. And first, be grateful for one more opportunity in the Sunday morning to learn a little bit more about Jesus' teachings, to learn and then start thriving and start trying to make the efforts to apply those learnings in our own lives. Let's be grateful for FSS and the entire spiritual team that takes care of this lovingly house, of this light that we have based on the Spiritism doctrine in our city in Calgary. And let's ask for guidance. Let's ask that our our guidance, our guardian angels stay with us, that we stay with our thoughts connected to them, and that they enlighten us, and that they help us with advice, with intuition about this one more time that we have here to learn about our talents that we will learn, to learn how to make the best of those talents, and try to avoid the desire to hide them, and instead of that, to use, to practice, and to take all the necessary and the required actions to use them to our moral evolution. Let us have a blessed Sunday morning. So be it. All right. Oops. Just give me 1 second here. Carol, I'm a little bit confused. Can you see my screen or anyone in Zoom?
Yes.
With the title? Okay, cool. Not with the notes and everything.
No, just the PowerPoint presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so today the topic is the parable of the talents. What have you been doing, or what have we, been doing to multiply and not hide all the talents that God has given us in this instance, in this incarnation here on earth? So some of the references that I will be using today is basically three. One lecture from Rossandro called I Hid My Talent Due to My Fear, or in Portuguese, it's my free translation, Por Medo Escondi Meu Talento. Spiritual Healing to Fear, Phobias and Panic, or Cura Espiritual do Medo, das Fobias e do Pânico, by Alírio from Feint. And I would like to finish today with a text from a book called Among Brothers from Other Lands, or Entre Irmãos de Outras Terras, by Francisco Cândido Xavier and Valdo Vieira, that was dictated by various spirits. And the reason that I would like to use it is because they have a very interesting analogy of the parable of the talents, which is the parable that we'll be talking about today. But how does that analogy, and how Irmão X, who was the spirit that dictated, establish a parallel between the parable and the servant that got one talent, and that talent is the spiritism knowledge. So I like to leave that with us, for us to reflect and see how important it is. And if we take the law of responsibility, the responsibility that each one of us have to make the best, and to make the efforts that are each one of us have our own, but to really invest those efforts to promote the Spiritism knowledge. All right. Some of initial reflections that we have. what is my stance or what is my approach when I face a challenge in my life? What is my stance when facing the challenges of our life? How do I react? And we're going to see the parallel between the first two servants stance approach or the last servant approach. Do I usually compare myself with other people? You're going to see some of Rosandro's reflection about the comparison and how not productive the comparison is. And do I try to avoid decisions that might cause frustration? And for those who remember, my God, 2018, when I first did my first lecture, it was about fear, and we'll know that fear and frustration has such a tight connection, and how that connection relates to that one servant. All right. So the parable, let me just adjust one thing here. The parable of the talents, it is just at I'm not going to read all of that, all the parable, but just as a highlight, we had 3 servants where the master came to them, and to each of them, the master gave to the first one 5 talents, to the second one 2 talents, and to the third one 1 talent. So the master went out. I think if I remember correctly, it went into like some travels and gave the talents. And then when he came back, he went and checked to the servants, what have they done with those talents? And as if you remember, to the first talent, he came and said, "Hey, here you have my 5 talents and 5 other talents." To the second, and the master said, "Great, kind of congratulations in this new age." If we were to translate into this into the nowadays, right? And to the 2 talents, he go to the master and said, "Here's my 2 talents," and 2 other more talents to the master, and the master said, great job. However, when we got to the last talent, the third and last servant, he was too scared, right? And here I put the quote from, this is a parable from Matthew chapter 25. The third servant said, "I was so afraid that I went and hid your talent in the ground, and here you have what is yours." So that third servant, due to fear, he decided to hid and decided not to do anything with that talent. And we are going to explore, and we're going to focus what is the implication of that third servant and some of our behaviors, the ways that sometimes we react like that third servant. And as the master received the third servant, saying that he did it, he hid the master. Of course, it was figuratively. The master said, "Oh, now he kind of mentioned that that third servant was negligent, right? And he sent that third servant away into some sort of and we're going to talk about a little bit at the end, to that prison, not as a punishment, but as a consequence, to so that third servant could learn, and we will be able to learn that his approach to it, his stance, his behavior was not the right one, whereas he was expecting from the other two servants. And as you know, the parables, there are like an onion that we peel, right? And there are several interpretations, and we could use like hours and hours to explore those parables. But today, I just would like to focus a little bit on that last servant, that servant that hid, and how can we identify ourselves sometimes with that servant when we sometimes hid our talent. Sometimes we hide our talents, and we decided not to duplicate and not to do the work that is required to use them. And just to put a little bit in perspective, those talents are all, they're all everything that God has given us, right? Our resources, our skills that God lent us, so we can carry out all the work that is required for our evolution in this time on earth. So I would like to bring, and I think the folks from the Department of Welcome and Assistance recently studied the two types of motivation that Alirio explains using this parable. And the third servant, he was motivated, and I'm kind of free translated here. This is the best that I think it captures the essence, is a motivação do afastamento, or the motivation by separation, right? And the other two, they use what Alirio calls the motivation by approximation. So let's just explore a little bit, what do we mean by those two words? So first, what is motivation, right? Motivation is everything that drives us to use our energy, in a specific direction. So I'm going to use the energy to achieve a specific purpose, right? The motivating ourselves mean using all our energy, our emotional and physical capacity in order to achieve a certain goal, to achieve a certain future point, or a better state that we wish and we desire for all of us. And when Alirio mentions about the motivation about approximation, is he mentions that when we do that, we focus in solving the problem, right? I want to get to that a destination. I want to get to that result. And I don't worry too much about assessing and making sure, oh, this is going to take so much work. I am very invested to fix it. And I also, when we decided to take that approach, we focus on the benefits, we focus on the results, and we enjoy that journey, right? We take advantage into learning and enjoying everything that we are going through, that with keeping in mind that we have that final point, that we have that final state that we would like to achieve. And I established this proactive, right? I want to do it, and I won't just wait for something to come to me. I'm going to establish that proactive relationship, that I will search for that satisfaction that I wish, that I would like to get once I fix or I do whatever is not working in each one's life. In contrary, or in the motivation by separation, my stance is, I don't want that problem. I just want to separate. I don't want to be attached, or I focus too much on that problem and how I am not able, or I feel like I have no capacity or the skills to solve it, or to go through it, or to deal it. And also, I focus a lot on the consequences. I forget about the problem and I just get away of the consequences. And it goes on that vicious cycle that I don't address the root cause, and I just keep pedaling and keep swimming on the consequences instead of addressing that root cause. And sometimes, even though I might go towards addressing the consequences and sometimes taking a look at the root causes, I feel like an obligation. I must do it. I shall do it. And I don't stop to think, why am I doing that? And I forget to focus on that end goal that I have in mind for me once whatever I'm dealing with will be resolved. And there's a lot of worry, right? It's like, oh, it will take that much of effort to take it, to do what needs to be done, that I worry too much, that I worry even to motivate, and I feel stuck, and I just keep rumbling, and we keep rumbling in our minds everything that is required, and I just don't take that action. I don't take that proactive attitude that the other two servants have decided, right? And a leader also mentioned that in that servant, he becomes a little bit negligent, right? He tries to separate from the work, and he puts aside the opportunity to do whatever is required, obeying and following the law of work, the law of progress, the law of merit, to do what it takes or what is required. And that servant, and all of us, we have a little bit of all of them in different stages of our lives and in different situations. We lack a little bit of that courage, the courage to take that first step, to take that first initiation, to go through and to exercise or do the work that is required to change whatever current state that we are in into a better one, a better future one. So I think I really like the way that Alirio describes that parable into more the like nowadays, or the reality of our emotional capacity, and how some of those behaviors are the behaviors of those servants are in us. So as we know, we have choices, right? We have choices to take between those two types of motivations that we just talked about right now, right? And choices it's a fundamental part, a fundamental role. I would say daily, hourly, we are always we're always making choice, and sometimes we often think that not making a choice, it's kind of the best one, right? However, even though we think that, oh, I would just stand neutral here, I won't making a choice, I'm making a choice already of not making a choice, if you know what I mean. And if I look to all the books from the Spiritism doctrine, and if Jesus is our role, is our model and guide in any of the situations and instances that Jesus, when Jesus was incarnated here, Jesus was never portrayed that inactiveness, that neutral stance or approach in all of us. Jesus always tells us that is not productive for us as a mortal spirit incarnated on this earth, not to choose or not to make any decisions, and even to be silent. It's important that we go towards the action, right? And Rosandro makes a reflection also in all the parables that Jesus have left us, all the actors, the characters in those parables, all of them, they made a decision. We can take the prodigal son. The prodigal son made like several decisions, even though the decisions in the beginning when he decided to take his inheritance and go away, even though that was not the right decision, he made one. And as he realized when he was out of the father's house, he then realized that that was not the right decision. Course correct that decision and came back. And in no shape or form he was, let's say, neglected or he was not welcome. So that brings us that even though some of our choices, some of our actions might not be the right one, first, our master, as an example of our master did, and as an example of God, we will always have the opportunity to correct. We will always have the opportunity to change everything that was not chosen or chosen correctly or didn't have the results that we were expecting. So that here brings a very important point of that virtue that we always like to reinforce, that is the apprentice feeling. Even though it's important to take that action, to make those decisions, and if I made it wrong or it was not the one that I was expecting, what have I learned? What have I learned that I can change, do it different? And we will have as many opportunities are required for us. If we make a second time, oops, that's the wrong pathway again, we will always have that opportunity to course correct. But I would like to remember what Emmanuel said. I can't remember now exactly in which text. If we keep making exactly the same wrong decision in exactly that same part of our life or whatever we are, it invites us to make a reflection. Am I being a little bit stubborn here? And I keep doing the same mistakes. How can I make further reflections to see if something I can change here so I can get a different result? So again, here is the importance for us to be proactive and the importance for us to um, uh, obey or be mindful of the law of labor or work and progress. Things will not just magically appear, right? And this can go from our life and within our life, in our work, volunteer, family, a relationship, in anything. The invitation is for us not to waste this opportunity or this investment that God has given us with our talents to, 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 to do what is required to improve. And if we take that the third servant stance or his behavior, Josandro makes two analogies. What could have gone through that third servant if I just put myself in the shoes of that third servant? What could have gone through his life? And he makes two analyses that I would like to bring. First, he might look at the others, like the first and the second servant, and he might start asking, why did others receive more and I received less? Why did the master did that to me? So here it's that, when I had that second question, is that comparison. That third servant stopped looking at their own talents to count the talent of others. And that talent and this counting or looking or comparing those talents can be in so many fashions, right? It can be intellectual abilities that my neighbor has, or material possessions, assets, anything that I, instead of looking at to myself, I go to the comparison. And the comparison, especially with those we think that have more than ourselves. So this is a clear moment that we stop observing our own talents and start making efforts towards the others, right? And we start looking at the others to multiply the other talents instead of dedicate the efforts to multiply my own. Because as we know, God is perfect. And he has given us exactly what we need to do exactly what we are supposed to do with our lives right now. And another like side effect of this comparison, sometimes we start the blaming game, right? Oh, I blame God for giving more to person A or B, or I might start blaming parents or relatives or anyone in the family, or even the government. It's like, I can't do this because of an external force that is inhibiting me to do what I need to do. So we became this kind of this behavior of the unfaithful servant, that instead of focusing on the existence of the resources within him or herself, and we can remember what Jesus said, you are gods. You are gods. Make your light shine. All of us, we are capable of making our light shine. Jesus did not say, you are gods, make the other light shines. Of course, I'm not saying here that we should just be focusing in ourselves and we don't care about others. But if we don't shine our light first within ourselves, it will be harder for us to help our neighbors to find their own possibilities, to shine their lights as well, because the potential exists in all of us. And it doesn't matter if I have one, a half, a two, a three, four talent in any shape or form. In that parable, the master came and said, you should reach 100 with this talent, or a third, or a 50, because that would not be fair, because one started with 5, another 2, another 1. He didn't say that. So and why he didn't say, the message is everyone has their own path, everyone has their own result, or things that need to be changed and worked on in our lives. So it looks very different for anyone, for all of us, right? And any talent can be multiplied. It doesn't matter. Maybe, oh, I have talent A. Nah, I don't think that's worth enough, or that's important enough. So that cannot fulfill any purpose. That's not, there's no coincidence. There's no by chance in our life. Everything that we have, it does matter. So if we look at those, if we look at those of others instead of looking, or if we look at the talents of others instead of looking to my own talents, what does that result into me? So what does that cause to me? It's that feeling of I'm inferior, right? I'm feeling diminished. And sometimes I might even question that if I don't think my talent's worth multiplying, does that God even love me? Why would God give me that talent instead of my person A talent? So this is not a healthy attitude, because we know that God, it's with the law of love, justice, and charity, kind of our major law. God loves us equally, right? So in some cases, when we face that challenge and questioning if God really, or God even loves me, or God cares about me, sometimes we we even start thinking about some of our past lives, right? We start some, oh yeah, I'm going through this, or this talent is because something that I did in the past life, or I'm quote unquote paying what I did. And it's important to know that even if we're going through some consequences here, we are not the mistake that we might have we might have caused or did in the past, right? We did a mistake. We are not a mistake. And there is an invitation for us to be grateful for the opportunity that God gives us to repair. With his divine mercy that comes with the law of cause and effect, we have an opportunity to deal with the effect of a cause that was not good, so we can learn, right? And keep going, and as the divine mercy of God and his supreme intelligence, sometimes in our programming of when we like plan for our incarnation, maybe we want to take step by step instead of fixing everything right now. Let's fix a little bit here, do a good job in doing that part, and then we will have another opportunity to fix whatever is left for something that we might have caused in the past. But the importance is it's up to us to take that initiative and take those actions, and not imagine or establish ourselves as the bad person that I think I was in the past, because we are not that. We did that, but it's different that establishing that this is who I am right now. Luis is an immortal spirit. I'm being Luis right now and going through all my challenges and my learnings, but that does not dictate, that past does not dictate who I am. And for those who love movies, it's like Josandra mentioned, the avatar, right? I am in the Luis avatar right now, but then there were other avatars in the past, but the immortal spirits is the same, right? But again, that avatar, it changes, right? And we have that opportunity to change. And the divine laws are all here, all of them, to protect us and to let us repair whatever is required to repair. Another piece is it's dear to my heart, is we talked about what could have gone through in the mind of that third servant with the comparison. Another way of looking at it is that third servant looking at fear. And he might say, oh my God, maybe he didn't compare. He's like, okay, I'm fine with what I have. I'm okay with what I'm not looking to the first and the third, to the first and second servant. However, he might have thought, situation is not favorable for me here. I'm okay with one, but the first servant, he got 5. Let's say that first servant made some bets or whatever he did there. He might lose 1 or lose 2. So 5 minus 1, he might left with 4 talents in that case, right? So it seems that the third servant, do a risk analysis, if we were to think about. And if he look at the first one, he has more. Okay, he's still fine with the 1, but he's just measuring the risk. The second servant, oh, he has 2. He might put some bets here and there, he might lose one, but he still has, if he loses one, he still has one left. However, mine, I'm just one. My risk here, my risk profile increased. And if I lose this one, it's like, oh my God, and now I'm at zero. So I have to find the one that I lose and maybe give one more. So then I am in that fear state. I was so afraid with that, all the risks and with the constraints that I have within myself. Then we can analyze this fear behavior that I decided to to not risk, right? To not risk and do nothing, and I won't have to deal with the master. And another analysis here is that fear that we have of, in this case, with the master. What is he gonna do with me? Right? And if you think of Lord, and if we have that stance of fear of God, and fear of judgment, and fear of punishment. And as we know, this is not the Lord, this is not the God that punishes us. It's not the God that will slap our hands for doing something bad. That's not our God. And we can see again, if we take all the parables, in any of the parables, and I can bring the prodigal son again. When the prodigal son came back, there was no punishment. There was no judgment, punishment, or questioning of you shouldn't have done that. There's no blame, there's no guilt. So that is another reinforcement for us that Jesus shows us the importance to act again, right? And if we take the not so good or the wrong or not the route that we are expecting, the divine mercy and Lord doesn't judge us. The Lord doesn't blame us. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that we're going to stay in um, doing the wrong thing. However, there is reflection that we can take based on the teachings and see what can I do to change. So those are of fear and comparison that we can elaborate and reflect based on the third servant. And I would like just to go a little bit further on the fear. And we know that the fear, as Alirio mentioned to us, is the root cause of fear is how it's we don't like to deal with our frustration, right? So the frustration is like the deepest root cause of fear. And as we know, in the life and the world that we are living here, not having a frustration, and if we decide to hide our talents because we don't want to deal with frustration, that is a circle that we are going to go round and round, because the chances are that frustration is part of our daily lives, right? And that frustration, one of the reasons that we don't want to deal with it or don't want to face it, most of the times it relates to some egoic feelings, right? I don't want to experience rejection. I don't want to feel as a failure, or I fear what others will think about me or will rejected me, right? And I want to be accepted 100%. And we know that now in the days that we live, that is hardly possible. And just to reinforce, in all the experience that we might have experience that we get it right. That's great, keep going. But once we are in those experiences, it's rarely that once we did everything right, it's rarely that we stop and think, why did I do that right? What was the thing that I did that caused that positive reaction or that positive benefit? That's more rare. However, when we get it wrong, then when we fail or into something, then that is the greatest opportunity that instead of we just see as a failure, we see as a learning. We stop and we say, okay, what went wrong? How can I correct? How can I learn and understand what went wrong and try to change? Those failures or the things that we get wrong really prepare us to even face a little bit more challenges that are a little bit harder in the future. And it's our progression, right? It's the mechanism that Lord God has put into place, so we are able to really be prepared to go further and further in our journey. And here again, with that one talent, the servant, he missed the opportunity, right? That was given um, to him or her. And how many of us, sometimes we feel ourselves in that situation? We're stuck in the situation of pain or suffering for fear of not taking action. I'm not saying here that we should just disregard everything as like, oh, I'm done. I'm just go and I'm going to change everything overnight. We know that's not the invitation that we are invited to. It's important that we plan, that we analyze, that we think about what can I do step by step or in smaller pieces of actions instead of just dropping everything and changing. There is a process. There's no declaration that I'm changed from today, May 30th, and I'm going to change everything. That's not how things happen. And I really like this quote from Rosandro, where he says, "Fear is the password that does not open the safe of all the love that God pours on us." We must have an initial stake in our move. We have to offer our share, our first step, but all the rest is a multiplication and of God. And if we think that, I think there's an invitation that we we think that we are only ones responsible for fixing everything and multiplying everything. We know that we have God's mercy that helps us within our journey. And another quote that I love to bring is from the book of Mensageiros: "Anyone who operates and cooperates with a spirit turned to God can always hope for the best. It is not a promise of friendship, it is the law." So we think again, the light burden, right, that Jesus has taught us. We don't need to think that we are alone in this. Everything, we have our share, but once it's in our conscience that we have done everything that we are able to do, we can rest assured that the rest will be done. The rest that is outside of our capacity will be done. I think here is another, it's a different, an invitation as well to practice faith, right? To practice the confidence that we have everything that is required, that is in our own will, in our own power, and God has the rest, and He will take care to the rest that is required to complete whatever we need to complete. Okay, I'm going to skip this. And I like this two differentiation when I mention about fear and not saying, oh, I'm done with it. I'm changed now. If I was struggling in the situation, I'm going to leave the situation right now and everything will be solved. That's not the piece that we are inviting to. And there's this differentiation between prudence. I'm prudent that maybe I won't be able to achieve everything now. I'm not able to advance right now, or I can start doing some planning or something to start changing, right? So I don't just be reckless and do something that even can cause more harm than benefit in the future. And the difference between prudence and fear is that I will never advance. It's simple. I really like those two differentiation between let's be prudent. I cannot do everything now. I can start preparing, might not able to advance as fast as I can right now, instead of, oh, I'm stuck here. I will never advance into whatever I'm trying to do. And here I'd like to now finish with this passage from the book Between or Among Brothers in Two Different Lands. Is that Entre Irmãos entre Dois Mundos, where Irmão X, or Roberto de Campos, creates a dialogue, not a dialogue, a narrative using the three servants and relates those three servants with the knowledge of that the Spiritism doctrine give to us. So let's do it. So here, and just this book, it was written when Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira went to the U.S., I think, and with the help of various spirits, they went into different states from the U.S. to analyze and to think and to reflect about promoting the Spiritist doctrine outside of Brazil. And this is one of the texts. So the first servants, Lord, I've committed a lot of mistakes and I haven't been able to carry out your will, which determines the good for all your subjects or súditos. But with the 5 talents you put in my hand, so this is the first one, I started to cultivate, at least with small results, another 5, which they are work, progress, friendship, hope, and gratitude towards some of the companions who remained in this world. Forgive me, divine friend, if I could not do more. In this case, the same way that happened in the parable that described by Jesus, the Lord thanked him and moved him along and received the second servant. Lord, please forgive me for my incapacity. I couldn't clearly understand the designs that prescribe equal happiness for all creatures, and I perpetuated pitiful mistakes. Even so, I mobilized the 2 values you give me, and with them I raised another 2 that are culture and experience for many of the brothers who remain in the rear guard. Again, this is the servant that got 2 talents, that could not do everything he was expecting to do, committed mistakes, but he was able to create and to raise culture and experience within where he was. And let's see now the third one, which I thought was really interesting. The third one, Lord, I give you back the Spiritist knowledge, untouched and pure, which I received from your magnificency. The Spirit's knowledge is light, Lord, and with it I learned that your law is too hard, assigning to each one according to their own work. How can you use such a lamp or a light, bright and alive, when men on earth are torn by the nightmares of envy and jealousy, cruelty and illusion? How to use the light of your truth without hurting or disturbing? And how to bother or hurt without bringing deplorable consequences for myself? You know that the truth among men creates problems where it appears. In light of this, I was afraid of your law and judged it to be the most reasonable measure for me to accommodate myself with the peace of my home. Thus, thinking, I hid the gift you recommended to apply, and I restore to you such wealth, without the slightest touch on my part. So in this part, the master start questioning his not right behavior, and then the servant cried, right? And he was saying, now you will be punishing me? Where is the equity you gave to my companions more power, more comfort, more skill, more prestige, more intelligence, authority, and you only give me the Spirit's knowledge. How am I getting all the weight of your severity only on me? And the Lord answers, you are aware that I have attributed the light of truth to you as the greatest good of all. If both of your companions didn't get everything right, it's because they lacked the discernment. You could have given them through correcting by loving and working by instructing. Hiding the wealth I lent you, you were not only lost for the fear of suffering and helping, as you have also harmed the deficient work of your brothers, whose days in the world would have reached a greater yield and eternal good, if they had received the share of love and service, humility and patience that you denied them. So I think it really um, touched me this part, this text from this book, and the importance and this powerful and important talent of the light of the truth that we have been given as immortal spirits within this spiritism doctrine. And the text kind of ends saying that the Lord's advisors led the disloyal servant into the shadows to the new beginning, clarifying to him that the law really is discipline of mercy and justice, but with the law is discipline and justice, but there is a difference. Those who are ignorant of duty, justice arises by mercy. However, for those that are aware of their own obligations, mercy arises through justice. So I'd like to leave this piece of the importance for us and this parallel between the original parable and this parable by your brother X, and the importance that we have within this knowledge that we carry, that we are presented, that we have this opportunity to have the discernment to help us and to help our brothers. And it's important that we don't carry this alone. It's important to be mindful of the humility to ask, and sometimes to ask for help if we're taking that stance of comparison, of fear, or we just don't know what to react. Ask for help. Ask for help with in our prayers to guardian angels and to our friends and our family and our FSS family to work together and to be sure that we are taking all the efforts and the action to keep going along within ourselves and help humanity. That's it. 2 minutes. I think, yeah, that's what I have for today. And I'll go to our final prayer because we have our AGM at noon. Okay, so let's keep our thoughts raised to God, to Jesus, our Master. Be thankful again for one more sunny and shining Sunday morning. Be thankful for the learnings, for the opportunity that we have to reflect into all the talents that have been given to us. And all of them, they're worth it. And all of them, they're able and capable of multiplying. It's important that we take our share of effort, our share of responsibility, but we know that the divine mercy, God, and spirituality is here to help us. It's here to guide us and alleviate any burden that we might be facing. Lord, let us have a blessed Sunday. Let us have another blessed week. And let us be serene with patience that we are able and we are capable to go through all the challenges and the happiness that is reserved for us as an immortal spirit. So be it. Okay, I'll close this one and I'll share the link to the AGM shortly. Thank you, everyone.